Welcome to another episode of The Financially Free Investor, where you will learn information and strategies on how to become financially independent by investing in real estate, something that is not taught openly in our society today. Financial freedom matters so you can live a bigger life, retire early, and do what matters most to you. Get ready to hear tried and true methods to becoming financially free with your host, Jordy Clark.
Hey everyone, welcome into another episode of The Financially Free Investor. I want to talk about the housing recession today. So it's official. I think we're in a housing recession. I was just, if you listen to my podcast, about a week ago, I released an episode, kind of my key takeaways from a conference I went to last week. Here's the reality, guys. We probably are going to see a decline in prices even further than we are. In fact, Forbes magazine, which, supposedly they're the experts in all things money. Breaking news on September 21st, which was 2 days ago. Housing market recession. Home prices fall as rates reach 6%. Here's how much further they could drop. Man, there's a lot of articles like that. U.S. housing recession could send prices 20% lower by mid-2023. Housing market in deep recession from the New York Post. Fortune magazine, we're entering the next stage of the housing market downturn. We're in a housing recession. Politico, how a recession could change the housing market. Guys, there is all these articles. It doesn't matter. Frankly, it doesn't matter. What matters is you guys, what you're going to do to take advantage of this. The Chinese symbol for crisis has two meanings. One means danger, and the other means opportunity. So if you guys remember 2008, 2009, man, a lot of people lost a lot of money, and that's what everyone chooses to focus on and remember. Here's what they're not choosing to focus on. That was the single greatest opportunity in a decade to pick up housing, to pick up stocks. But everyone chooses to remember that they know somebody who lost their shorts. And unfortunately, it's going to happen again. People are over leveraged. People got over leveraged the last 2 or 3 or 4 years because money was so easy. It was so cheap, so they started speculating and building spec homes on, pure speculation. Started flipping homes when people had no business flipping homes. And they were making a ton of money and everyone's bragging about it on social media. And there are a lot of people that are really hurting right now because they are not adjusting to lower prices, given the fact that interest rates have doubled in the last 6 months. So here's what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk about where is your opportunity? And, most listeners are somewhere around Utah. They have some interest in Utah. I talk a lot about Utah's real estate market. I'm a broker who has a high performing team. We help a lot of people buy, sell, and invest in the greater Salt Lake area. So I'm going to do just a 5-minute market update because I know you guys are all seeing the same article headlines that I just read off. I mean, how can you not? Especially in today's day and age. So I wanted to give you some actual data because so many people have been calling me thinking that, it's the end of the world. Well, it's really not. And here's why I say that. So the last 5 years, 2018 to 2022 is where this data is taken from. It's taken from our multiple listing service, or most people know it as utahrealestate.com, the MLS. It's kind of where you go to look at houses. 2018 to 2022, number of residential listings entered, I would say it is on trend with the last 5 years. There has not been a huge change in how many listings are entered in It is seasonal. So, we probably peak in May, June, as far as how many listings get entered, but really March through September, October, it's pretty consistent between 5,000 and 7,000 listings a month each year. It's kind of interesting looking at this, but anyways, November, December, January, February are probably the slowest 4 months out of the year for us. It's seasonal, holidays, we've got snow. A lot of people don't like to move in the snow, so that is what it is. Average number of active residential listings per day by month. So in 2020, we were kind of following the trend line of the previous 5 years, where anywhere between 6,000 and 8,000 houses were active on the market in all of Utah any given day by the month. Okay. Well, come March to April, that's when all the lockdowns started hitting, and everyone thought we were turning into zombies, myself included. And so we saw an uptick in listings. And then from there, about June, I would say we deviated from the normal 5-year historical, 6 to 8,000 range. July, we were right under 6,000 listings. And then it kind of trended downwards all the way to December of 2020, when there were 3,500 homes in all of Utah. We have a population of 3.5 million people, or somewhere around there. 3,500 homes for 3.5 million people. It's crazy. It's half of what it normally was. Normally it's more than half. Normally we were 8 to 10,000. So the fact that we're between 2 and 4,000 is a lot less. Well, 2021, it was pretty much the same. Like it hovered from January to June, and it was between 2 and 4,000 listings active per month. We started ticking up a little bit. Come September, we had 4,500. There's that seasonality, and then dipped back down to where it was in 2020. So the demand was at an all-time high. I mean, if you guys remember, in 2020 and 2021, people were bidding $100,000 over asking price, non-refundable earnest money. They were basically giving their cats and dogs and naming rights to their first or second child away just to get a house. And it was madness. And then it started going to, oh, well, if you don't have cash, then we're not even going to look at your offer. Guys, in what world did that make sense? Nowhere did it make sense. So we fast forward to 2022. We started out the year the exact same. But then in April, we started seeing these rate increases, okay? At least in mortgage rates. April wasn't that bad. May, there was a big deviation from 2021. June, all of a sudden, we were at where we were in 2020 as far as number of active listings go. And then July, August, September, we instantly popped back to our normal trend line. So here's what I'm here to tell you today. Yes, there is crisis out in the market today. There is opportunity, though. And if you choose to focus on the opportunity, that's what you're going to find. If you focus on the crisis, guess what? You're going to live in a crisis. If you choose to focus on the opportunity, here's the cool thing. Our market is almost identical to 2018 and 2019 markets. Yet everyone out there is pretending like this is just 2008 all over again. And in reality, it's not, because you've had to qualify for mortgages for the past 6-7 years, versus in 2008, you could fog a mirror and get $1 million loan making $12 an hour at Taco Bell. So here's the interesting thing. And I know I've kind of been long-winded, but I want to give you more data to let you see that there is an opportunity. And I'm going to kind of foreshadow that a little bit, and then I'll kind of let you know where I think the opportunity is going to be for the next 6 to 18 months. But going back to the data, average number of under contract residential listings per day by month, we are just slightly below the average trend line for 2018 to 2021. I'd say 2020, 2021, more homes were going under contract than 2018 and 19, which is obviously what caused a lot of our lack of supply. Is everyone was literally buying anything they could just because it was available on the market. Well, we've now kind of dipped slightly below. I wouldn't even say it's vastly below 2019 and 2018. So in 2018 and 2019, we had roughly 7,000 homes going under contract per day. Over the month period. 2022, here we are. We're like 6,200 instead of 6,800 or 7,200-ish. Okay, so maybe 10% less homes are going under contract. Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about was number of sold residential listings. And this is really what matters, because if you own a property and you say, hey, I owe 225 and hey, I think it's worth 450, frankly, that's a made up number. It doesn't, like, yeah, homes around yours are selling for 450. Until you actually sell, find a willing and able buyer, and you get it across the finish line and you receive a wire transfer, that money is fake. It does not really exist. You can't do anything with it. You can't go buy a car with it. You can't go buy a burger with it. It's equity. It's there. It comes and it goes. Okay. So don't focus on the equity. You focus on the payment. And especially if you are buying an investment property, you focus on what the difference between the payment and what the rent would be. Okay. The lower the payment, the higher the rent, the more you're going to cash flow. The higher the payment, the lower the rent, the less you're going to cash flow. Okay. Pretty easy math there. So number of sold listings. And this is historical data, so we don't have September's yet. We will in a few weeks, but July and August were probably the lowest months. And we are on average closing about what we would close in December or, well, January or February of a normal year. Okay. Normally July is the biggest number of solds, as people have put them under contract in June, because it takes 30 or 45 days to close escrow usually. And then, July, everyone goes on vacation. August, September, things kind of start calming down a little bit as far as the volume of solds, because people just weren't putting stuff under contract in August, back to school, everything that's going on there. And then September starts getting a little cooler. October starts getting a little cooler, and it kind of just slowly tapers down, which is normal seasonality that we see. Okay. So here's kind of what I think's going on. I think a lot of the buyers have just left the market because, frankly, they focus on the interest rate. They focus on, oh, well, I'm not going to pay a 6.5% interest rate because 8 months ago rates were 3.5. Well, yeah. Okay. You can focus on that. Good for you. What you should be focusing on, however, is the next decade. And the real question is, given the lack of land that we have in the Salt Lake County, Utah County, Davis County, Weber counties, do you think that real estate is going to be worth more or less? And then the follow-up question is, do you think that rents are going to be more expensive in 10 years or less expensive in 10 years? And if you look at data and you look at trends, I think they're going to be more expensive. We've got more people coming here. We've got less land available. Simple supply and demand tells us we're going to have an upward pressure on pricing on both rentals, meaning like the rent that you can get for a house or an apartment or vacant land, because there's just less of it available. And if there's more people fighting and competing for the same scarce resource, it's going to get more expensive, unfortunately. And right now, here's what I think is happening. I think everyone is so burned out by the high gas prices, by the high food prices, by, subcontractors wanting more and more money. You guys know I flip houses. I've got 2 flips going on right now. One of them I've had for a year. I was talking to my general contractor, and for the last month, he hasn't been able to get his flooring subcontractor out there. Well, I made one phone call and I get my guy out there. Okay. And my general contractor is just shocked. He goes, "How did you get him out there so fast?" And I said, "Dude, I pay him what he asks, and he shows up 2-3 days out usually for me because I find something that's in stock and he knows it's going to happen." Well, I've been waiting 4 weeks for this general contractor's flooring supplier to show up. So the next thing the GC asks me is, he says, "Well, how much are you paying him per square foot to install?" Because that's how they make their money. And I was like, "I don't even know, frankly, because I've just built trust with him and I just pay him what he tells me the bill is, knowing that he's been fair with me in the past." So he tells me, "Hey, it's like," I asked him, it was like $2 a foot. So $2 per square foot. So if it's a 2,000 square foot house, he charges me $4,000 to install laminate or LVP flooring. So I texted back my general contractor, "Hey, $2 a foot." And he goes, "Well, that's why my other guy's not getting back to me, because I've been paying him $1.65 a foot." So here's where it gets interesting, and I'll try to wrap it up and put a bow on this as eloquently as possible. My general contractor cost me $7,500 in carrying costs and just interest, because he was trying to save $450 on labor for one trade. Now, I totally get that when you're remodeling, when you're doing all this stuff, you have to keep your budget in mind. But he sacrificed $7,500 to try to save $450. Okay. Because he was trying to play the game that existed in 2018, 2019. Well, guess what, guys? The game has changed. Everything's more expensive. Everything. Interest is more expensive. Houses are more expensive. Gas is more expensive. Food is more expensive. Phones are more expensive. This is called inflation. Okay. So I say all of this to make my point of, the next 18 months are going to be very different than the last 18 months. And there is danger, but there is also opportunity in the crisis that's coming. And if you choose to focus on the opportunity, you're going to choose to have opportunity show up for you. So I'm gonna wrap it up with this. I think there is going to be a huge opportunity as interest rates have gone through the roof, we'll say, even though historically we're at about a historical average for the last 30 or 40 years as far as mortgage interest rates go. There will be more creative ways of buying and selling properties in the next 18 months than we've seen in the last 8 years. And here's why. You're going to have to get creative if you want to move something right now. You're going to have to get creative if you want to buy something and make it cash flow and make it make sense right now. Okay. We just put an investment property under contract. The seller was willing to sell or finance it, which is probably the only reason this deal made sense. I think we're paying about market value today, paying $210,000 for this. Oh, sorry, 216,000. It's worth somewhere between 210 and 220. So I think we're paying market value. We're not getting a screaming deal on it. Here's where it gets interesting though. Our interest rate is 5%. The prevailing interest rate, if we were to go to a bank and get a bank loan right now, is like 6.5%, 7%. Okay. We found an owner. Well, a wholesaler found an owner that owned this free and clear. They paid it off. They actually, I looked it up. They bought it in 2012 for like 30 grand. And in 2008, they were selling for like 65. So a 50-ish% drop, right? What's different now versus then is I don't think we're going to see a huge slew of foreclosures because everyone's got equity and everyone has super cheap mortgages. 85% of the mortgages out there have an interest rate lower than 4.25%. So that means people aren't just willing and able to just toss the keys back to the bank like they did in 2008 because they were underwater and everyone was doing it. So I mean, if that happens again, we're probably going to see, a major depression and prices are going to go through the floor. But you're not going to, banks aren't going to be lending. It's going to be tough. And so anyways, it gets back to this whole point that good deals are created right now. So back to my deal of our investment property we're buying for $216,000. We're putting up about 10% of a down payment, a little bit more. It's like maybe 12%, 5% interest rate. And as I was talking to the wholesaler and trying to make this deal work, because I liked the seller financing, I said, dude, on a 30-year loan at 5%, like I'm not going to make any money. In fact, I'm going to lose $150 a month. And he's like, well, what would make this a deal? And I said, well, here's 3 options. I gave him 3 different options. And he goes, okay, well, let me see what I can do. He went back to the seller, talked to the seller, and all the while he's getting paid a wholesale fee when this thing closes next week. So, and he's showing it to other people, and that's fine, but I had a good rapport with him and I'm kind of helping him work through these details. So at the end of the day, the seller picked one of the 3 options we gave him. And that was, instead of a 30-year loan, we had them do a 40-year loan with a 10-year balloon. And it was a balloon payment in 5 years previously. So basically what that means is we either have to sell it or refinance it in year 10. So it gives us 120 months to figure something out with this property, right? Well, here's the cool thing. We're able to pick up a property for less than 10% down. It's a win for the seller because they're burned out. They're tired of managing tenants. They've been self-managing. They own it free and clear because they got a really good deal and they had cash available. Now they're going to be the bank. They're going to receive monthly interest payments from me. Not a ton's going to go to principal, but a little bit is. One of the other options we offered them was interest only. Didn't love that option just because there's no principal pay down, which slowly every month, you pay a little bit more in principal down. So they took the 40-year loan. We modified the terms a little bit and it became a win-win for everyone around. So the wholesaler's getting his fee. We're picking up a property on seller financing that I did not have to deal with banks on. We're able to deploy our cash that's just going down in value by 10%. And we're putting it into a good property that is in a great location. And it's going to cash flow a little bit today. But hey, guess what? Do you guys think rent is going to be more or less in a year? Well, I personally think it's going to be more to rent a place in a year than it is today because of inflation. Everything's going to get more expensive. And here's what no one's telling you. Everyone's going to start making more money because as people start getting laid off, there are going to be more job openings available. And, one company who's doing really well is like, hey, we really need this person. So we're going to pay them this amount. And the market rates for salaries are just going to be pushed up because people aren't going to work for $20,000 a year. Like, it's just not realistic. I mean, I see fast food joints hiring at $15 an hour. Well, guys, not to date myself or anything, but when I got my first job 16 years ago, I'm 32, so this is half my life ago, I was happy to make like $7.50 an hour. And now these kids are making $15 an hour, right? Now, granted, everything costs more, but I say that to say this: when you lock in your mortgage payments, even for 10 years, but let's say 30 years at a certain rate, and rents go up just a little bit every single year. So let's say they only go up $50 a year for the next 10 years. Well, it's going to compound, right? So if I'm charging $1,000 a month this year, next year it's $1,050. And then, let's say it's just 5% escalation. It's 5% on the new number of $1,050 a month. So then it goes to, $1,155 and it starts compounding. And when you sit down and just break that out over a 10-year period, it's pretty astronomical on what can happen with rental property. And this is why the rich get richer and why, I think the next 18 months is going to be a great opportunity to buy, because there is not going to be any of the flipping excuses that we've heard for the last 5 years. Oh, we're at the top of the market. Oh, there's no deals to be had. I can't find anything on the MLS. You can't buy anything unless you're cash. Well, guess what? Market's now flipped and the power is shifted towards the buyer now. So, you're going to be able to go in and maybe ask for a lower price or ask for seller financing when, a year ago, someone would have told you to take a hike. And if you don't have the greatest credit, well, great. You can still buy something if you have some cash with seller financing, because sellers rarely care about, your credit history. They want you to make your payments on time, obviously, but they're not scrutinizing you like a bank. So this is going to be probably a great opportunity in the next 5 years, is right before us over the next 18 months in real estate right now. So guys, go get educated, go invest in yourself, bet on yourself, and buy some properties, start saving up, find a way to generate side hustles and incomes. And I've had a lot of different guests on here that have just different ways of looking at things. And the important thing is that you take action, that you go after a plan, get it, and then you'll probably pivot about 300 times in that plan. But the important thing is that you're taking action, you're moving forward on your guys' path to your first million and beyond, getting towards financial freedom, getting residual or passive or horizontal or whatever you want to call it income, where, all of a sudden it's a little bit less important spending $200 a month on gas versus $300 a month, because you now have more assets that are going up in value as inflation goes up in value. And so all of that to say, I think there is going to be a great opportunity the next 18 months. And in a few weeks, for the Utah Valley Real Estate Investors Association, I'm going to be speaking there, and I'm going to be speaking on how to become a millionaire in this recession. So if you're interested in hearing that, it's the third Thursday of the month. So let me just double check our date. October 20th, at the Utah Valley Real Estate Investor Association. If you want the address, you just Google UVREA. We will put it in the show notes. But I'm going to be speaking on how you can become a millionaire in this recession. And it's not going to be that hard. I think you can do it, especially if you're listening to this podcast and listen to other podcasts, and you just create a plan and take action in the next 18 months. I'd be willing to bet that most of you listening can become a millionaire and add some passive income in. So with that being said, guys, if this podcast added value, please share it with a friend. I would love to see you in person. Come out to the Utah Valley Real Estate Investor Association as I teach everyone how they too can become millionaires or multimillionaires in the next 18 months. With that, we're going to be signing off. We'll see you guys. Thank you for joining me for another episode of The Financially Free Investor. If you found value in this episode or know someone who would find value in this information, please share with them, subscribe, and send us a review.